Welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and this podcast, it exists for you. Whether you're a music lover, an educator, a choir member, each week we bring guests to the show to help explore what matters in music. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and today we are talking to a technology strategist who specializes in working with music educators, my new friend, Jaime Slutzky. Y'all, Jaime is fun to talk to. I was a little bit nervous because of the technology thing, but she's human, y'all. And in this conversation, we talk about how to take what sparks you and turn it into something that is creative and fun and innovative. And I really just enjoyed how this conversation got me thinking in a new way. So this episode is brought to you by all of our friends over on the Patreon page, which, spoiler, Jaime and I talk about what Patreon is, and we talk about the difference between brochure websites and marketing websites and educational websites. It's going to be a good episode. Anyway, this episode is brought to you by all of our friends over on the Music Ed Matters Patreon page. You can check it out at patreon.com/musicedmatters. You can also find out more by going to emilybirch.org, and there's all sorts of contact pages and stuff there. But if you're over on the Patreon page, you get a bonus episode every month. You get a direct line to yours truly, and you get to suggest episodes and guests and all sorts of cool conversations. Plus, there's going to be a really cool event just for friends of the Music Ed Matters podcast and the Chorosophy podcast coming up at the National ACDA convention in February. So you're going to want to go jump over on Patreon so you can get an invite to that. I can't wait. All right, enough announcements. Let's hear from my new friend, Jaime, and her awesome job as a tech strategist, especially with music educators. Today on the Music Ed Matters podcast, we are talking to Jaime Slutzky, a technology strategist. Hey, Jaime.
Hello, hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really love the title, Technology Strategist. What does that mean?
Technology strategist means that I have a technology backend. I have my degree in computer science, and I didn't want to sit writing code. I would rather make tech work for people and have people interaction. So I just kind of came up with the term technology strategist because I like to figure out the strategy for how to use technology in your business rather than just throwing more pieces of technology in and all that stuff.
Oh, I think this is going to make for a fun conversation. Before we get started, let's kick off some questions. What's your name? Where do you live? And you've told us what you do, but tell us how you got into it.
Sure thing. So again, my name is Jaime Slutzky, and I live in Redmond, Washington. And I got into what I'm doing kind of in a backwards way. I worked in corporate IT doing the thing. And then once my kids were little, I think they were 2 and 4 when I quit my corporate job and went all in on website freelance work. I'm too much of a strategist to just do freelance work. And I found my way into online courses. And then I found my way into working with a bass teacher and a harp teacher and a number of people who just were helping people achieve something that they never really thought was possible or that was just a pastime. And it wasn't like they were trying to fix someone else's problem and all of that. And that's kind of what I'm like, I want to do more of this. I want to spend more time working with music teachers. And so I kind of said, I'm going all in on helping music teachers create programs that they can use to scale beyond their one-on-one sessions, beyond private teaching, beyond the classroom, all of that.
That is so cool. So you were doing all this technology stuff before we were all forced to do it during the pandemic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, this was long before. I left my corporate job in 2011.
And then did you just happen across a bass teacher? Like, how did this musician come into your life, into your stratosphere?
Yeah, so I quickly found a software platform that helps course creators. I found my way to Thinkific, and I became an expert in their expert listings, and then this bass teacher found me and said, "I want some tweaks done to my site." And she and I worked together off and on for a couple of years, and it just worked. It just made sense. So that's kind of where it was I just kind of found my way into working with her because of this connection through the software she was using and the software that I was providing, tech services with.
I think it's so important. We all have websites, or most of us need websites for one reason or another. I mean, for me, I love having it for the contact page, which is how you reached out, but I
Hmm.
also love having it for the quickness of downloading a headshot and a bio. Like the number of
Yes,
times you get asked, "Hey, what's your headshot and bio?" Cool, here's the quick link to it. But I
totally.
couldn't design that myself. I had to go through someone. So is that kind of where your niche lies? Or you niche lies? Ugh.
Yeah, don't generally do what I call a brochure website anymore. So that's a website that people go to for information. Rather, I like to work on websites where people go to connect or to learn or to like a brochure website is when you go to to connect and find out where what the hours are of the coffee shop, or what time they man their phones, or all those kinds of things. Whereas the websites that I generally work on and the platforms that I generally work on are more platforms for people to have their courses live on, or have their membership site on, or that go deeper. Maybe there's a community involved. And I think that makes it so that like the website is part of the ecosystem rather than a shingle. And I think that that's a really important thing, is that if you are going to be online fully or partially, that you take advantage of what's out there and really use it, and don't just use like top level. So we want to go a couple of levels deeper.
This is awesome. So I like this definition, brochure website, which is, hey, let me go scope out this person, see if I want to hire them for the gig, whatever, contact them, this or that. But you're saying there's these additional levels where we could build community. Like I know the website Patreon, like the
Yeah.
podcast has a
Hmm.
Patreon page, and that's where a lot of the community live that go to support things like maintaining the podcast and keeping it in storage, where all the things that go into making one of these happen. But you're
Yes.
saying all of that could live in one place, and that's the type of stuff you design?
It is. It is. Yeah. And so with Patreon, what I love about Patreon is that people can find you there. So it's an additional search engine for your potential patrons. Just like, iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever is a search engine for people to help find whatever it is that they're looking for. When it's all sitting on your own website, you have to rely on your own social media, your own search engine optimization. So I think that there is a place for these marketplace websites. Like again, like Udemy would be a good example of a marketplace website for courses. Patreon's a great marketplace for creators who want to monetize their creativity and to put things behind a paywall. Whereas, a lot of the stuff that I like to work on involves um, the education side. So, that's,
Let's
yeah.
talk about that. So, course creation and music educators, what are you working on right now that excites you, and what can we learn from it?
Yeah, that's such a good question. As you said, in 2020, everyone was thrown online. And what's happening now in 2023 is that people who said, I was thrown online and I am so thankful for it, are saying, I want to do things differently. I want to broaden the way that I'm able to interact and engage with students. And so instead of doing just lessons, whether it's private lessons or group lessons in a live to camera mechanism, I'm finding that teachers are saying, what if I record my lessons and I allow students to watch them on their own time? And I build in a new ecosystem for how students can engage with me, engage with other students, engage with the material, things like that. And so, what we're finding, and what I'm really actually pushing people toward, I guess, is to create something that can stand by itself. And it's a course that has kind of like a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a goal in mind. Maybe somebody is like, I want to audition for, first chair or something like that. And your course is helping them get ready for that audition. Or maybe it's, I have a client who has a beginning piano course for retirees. She knows that her retirees, they just want to sit back down at the piano. And she understands that they're not going to be playing these really intense things. They might have arthritis, they might have, cognitive issues, they might have other things, but she's helping them find a way to enjoy playing the piano and how to pick the music that's going to lighten, and brighten their days and their weeks. So there's a lot of things that we can do without being face to face with the student in a live manner. And I don't think that right now we have to say it's either live or it's all all asynchronous. I think that we're really in a time and space where there is connectivity points, there's community, there are feedback loops, there are ways that people can engage with their teacher without the teacher having to teach the same thing over and over and over again. Put your best product into a canned product, your best teaching into that. And then we can build the rest of the ecosystem around there. I know that was a little long-winded. I hope that
No,
that made
I
sense.
love this idea. And I like the use of ecosystem. You're talking about creating a whole, I'm kind of envisioning one of those globes you used to be able to get where there's a whole living ecosystem inside the globe and you
Yes.
watch it all happen. And I remember seeing that as a kid and thinking, how are they living in that little tiny globe? But you're just creating a bunch of these new globes for new connective points.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I mean, you don't have to learn or teach the way that you learned or taught in the past. And I think that that's what we're really starting to see is all of the new creativity, all of the new ways that people are getting comfortable. I have another client who is teaching the banjo, and what his big goal is for these people who are playing the banjo to go out and play with their friends. So many, and this is his research that he did, was so many of these people who are learning to play the banjo don't want to leave their bedroom or don't want to leave their living room with the instrument because they're insecure. So he's getting them to a point where they feel secure enough to go and just have a good time with their friends and playing the instrument. So, like, you don't have to think about these courses as something that is only for beginners or only for serious students or only for fill in the blank. You can do them in a way that they match your personality and that you can really carve your own segment of the music learning population so that they actually take the right course. Not everybody needs a 101 course. And so we can really kind of create that higher level course that's really got a very specific goal in mind. And I think that's really where we're going.
I love this part of the conversation because personally, the creativity that came post COVID, one of my colleagues calls me a choral entrepreneur because I just stopped doing it the way that we'd always done it because we now have all these new tools and all these new resources at the tip of our fingertip at our fingertips,
Yep.
tongue tied on a Tuesday. And I think it's just so exciting for a creative to use the creative space that has always been used towards choir and music for teaching and connecting. And what you're giving us are some really cool ways or ideas of where to toss it out into the technology universe. So you've hinted at some of the things your clients are working on and that it's possible to do it in these spaces. So for listeners that are listening right now, what are some things they could start brainstorming if they're thinking, I'd like to kind of get creative? What are some ways they can start the process?
Yeah, obviously there's the adage of, where's the gap in the marketplace? And I don't always love to use that definition because who wants to look for gaps? Where are the bright spots in your day? What do you love doing? And this may be something that you love teaching a certain melody, or you may love teaching a certain technique, or you may love when your students come back for the third year and are ready to get to that next level of repertoire. It doesn't really matter what it is, but what lights you up? And that's kind of where I like to start is, okay, figure out what lights you up, and then think about how can you take what lights you up and package it into something that the students who are right there right now with you would appreciate. And, I talk about this sometimes on my podcast, and I just talk about the fact that there are different types of courses and different types of programs. We can create complementary courses or complementary programs that kind of complement the one-on-one work we do. We can create supplementary, which is like taking people on the left turn, the road less traveled. We can create like prerequisite type courses or programs. So like if there's that thing that we were talking about that totally lights you up and you don't want to take that and put it into a course, what comes right before that? Could you have a course that takes people to the point where they're ready for that thing that lights you up, so that you're not working one-on-one with the students that are going through that messy part that you don't love quite so much? There are lots, there are like specific goal oriented courses, like I was talking about, like, auditioning for the first chair or things like that. And so, like, you can do a lot of different things. But I think the most important part of it all is to really think about, what do you want to be known for? If like you could be known for one micro little tiny thing in this vast online space, what would that be? I mean, for me, it's, I want to help you get the right technology to make your music enterprise, your music education, your studio thrive. That's my thing. Like, I don't need to say, I want to be the expert at this tool and that tool and that tool and show you how to put them all together. I want to be the expert at helping you accomplish this. And I think, Emily, this is just kind of one of the things that we have to get over, is that we don't have to be the expert at everything, and we don't have to own everything, even though we have the title of piano teacher, conductor, I teach whatever it is. We don't have to have those big titles to be excellent online.
You've given us some great ideas here. I've taken some awesome notes. I love that it starts from what lights you up. And I love that you've talked about that you can create things that complement or supplement or prerequisite or goal oriented. Those are all things that we're doing on a day-to-day anyway. But I have to ask the hard question.
Sure.
What about the students that don't learn as well? I mean, I'm super disciplined. Like, I'm a marathon runner and I don't miss any of my training days. And I'm realizing that that's not everybody's personality, but that's mine. So for me, an online course is no big deal. I just do it. But
Yeah.
what about the people out there that are like, I've had enough of online courses, or I don't know if my student will learn on their own? How do you help with the customer service or motivation, the discipline side of all this?
That's that ecosystem that we were talking about. That's building in email reminders. That's building in text reminders. That's building in office hours or jam sessions or feedback loops. Like, maybe you have a course that at the end of every module, the student records themselves and they send that to the teacher. The teacher provides asynchronous feedback, says, that was really great, but why don't you try and move your ring finger a little bit slower or a little bit faster, and then record that and send it back to me. And so there are ways for people to still connect with their teacher outside of the learning. And another thing that is really great about this is that I actually have this client who created an ear training course for piano, and she teaches group piano classes. So what she does is she actually has three of her students at a time go through their ear training while some of the other students are doing other things. And so she actually interactively checks in with the students. She's just not teaching that ear training live. They're watching it on the screen, but she's still in the room with them. So, there are a million ways to stay connected to the students that are outside of the actual transfer of knowledge.
So she's almost using it kind of like old school stations when you taught elementary school.
Yes.
So there's like
Yes.
a technology class that she's created to do the ear training, and she sends them over there while that's a really cool way of looking at it too. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. And she is licensing her ear training to other piano teachers. So other piano teachers can bring that into their studios.
Oh, so cool. And it all started because I bet she really loves teaching ear training.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. All right. So you've given us some ideas. You've kind of talked about like overcoming the barriers and creating that another reason for having those ecosystems.
Mhm.
So before we talk a little bit more about your podcast, what are the final thoughts for someone who's listening that's like, okay, I am really excited about XYZ, whether that's a complementary thing or a supplement or a prereq or a goal? They've thought about it, they've designed it. Do they just then reach out to you, or what's the next thing?
Oh, well, there's a lot that goes into finding a way to make this successful. And I think that the next thing is, even before you start creating that whole thing, is to vet it, is to get external buy in. I love pre selling courses. I love when my clients create an outline for their course and start selling from the outline. And maybe they teach it live, or maybe they record the lessons 2 days before their students get them. Like, there's just in time teaching, and, creation, just as there is just in time learning. So before going all in on researching the software and figuring all this other stuff out, you got to find your way into the audience of people who are actually going to buy it. And if you are already working with a number of students, start talking to your students about this course idea that you have. Or if your students are younger, talk to their parents and start spreading the word with your existing audience, and then get into online communities, whether that's on Facebook or that's on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, who knows, wherever you might want to go, and start to bring people in to your idea, so that you know that when you create this thing, that there are buyers ready to go through it. And that, I think, is really important. We start with the idea, we start with what lights us up, because that makes it exciting for us to talk about it. And then we can talk about it everywhere.
Right. Oh, I know the feeling. I just published a book, and the listeners are probably like, roll eye, here she goes again. Literally, this time last year, we were in the final editing process, and to see the book come out, it's like you can't help but talk about it. It is just
Yes.
so exciting. Like, not only did you invest your heart and soul and mind and time into it, but to see it come into fruition, you can't help but talk about it. And that's great. So you come up with the idea,
Yep.
you talk about it, you vet it,
Yep.
then outline, do some of the preliminary work, and then reach out to you to see what's possible?
You can reach out to me at every step of it. I'm not going to say you have to wait until this point, but my role, what I do with my clients for the most part, is helping to make sure that the course is well rounded, that the student journey is consistent with where you want to take them, and that we inject the right level of support and accountability into the course. I work with a business partner, and she is all about the social media marketing. Thank goodness, because I am just not. I love social media marketing. I just don't get all in it. So she helps our clients with that. She helps them a lot with like sales page and copy and all those kinds of things. And then I do all the tech work, making sure that the emails are set up properly, making sure that when someone purchases, they get access, they get tagged right in your email, and that we have all of the automation done behind the scenes, so that you don't have to worry when you're having that conversation with that next person, that when they say, okay, yes, that you have an answer. You say, okay, go to this page and buy it and you'll be on your way. So that's what we really do is we run this program to help our clients go from idea through launch and beyond.
I love it. Idea, launch, beyond. It is, I mean, I feel excited. I'm going to probably spend my next run thinking about all the different things that we could create together. I do have ideas. We'll talk offline.
I love it.
You have your own podcast, Expand Online Podcast.
Yes.
Is your podcast. Tell us about it.
It's the Music Teachers Expand Online Podcast, and it comes out every week. And pretty much I do nice short 10, 12-minute episodes unless I'm bringing on an interview or doing a coaching call. Sometimes I do coaching calls. I love doing those. And the idea is to give some nugget, some little push toward doing more online, streamlining things online, thinking about doing new ways, new things, all of that stuff in the online space, because there are so many opportunities for music education online. And again, like I said earlier, we don't have to just do straight to camera lessons. And so that's really what I want to talk about, is finding other ways. And I guess it was November of 2021, I did a whole series on different ways to do live teaching, like, different modalities. And like I was talking about the different software tools that were designed for live music lessons. And, I talk about software sometimes. I talk about strategy. I love talking about mindset. I could go on and on and on about the podcast. But yeah, just go ahead and take a listen. It's the Music Teachers Expand Online Podcast.
I'm totally going to link that in episode notes and give it a listen myself, because this is exciting. I know that sometimes it's hard to get across that learning has changed, but learning has changed. And there is a time and a place to be offline, and there are so many more times and places to be online. And I think that what you're providing music teachers is such a big piece of the what do I do now puzzle.
Yes.
So what would be, before we move on to the end of episode questions, what would be your nugget of wisdom if someone said, hey, I listened to this podcast today with this person, Jamie, who's a technology strategist, and this is what I learned? What would you say?
That you start with whatever you're at. Start with your ideas. Start with where your passion is. And, and you can build out from that. Because my definition of the zone of genius is where your passion and your skill set collide. And I love using the word collide, because whenever we do that, we see that big cartoon kaboom, and it's like that big, it's growing. And so when we're in our zone of genius, we are in a space of expansion and opportunity. So what is your passion? And where are your skill set? These things. They're always there. Those are your constants. When we can get those working together, there's no limit. So then once you're in there, you start with one. You start with one idea, you vet it, and you get going.
I'm really excited. We're totally talking about this as soon as we stop recording, because I have 2 great ideas. It's going to be so much fun.
I love it, Emily.
This is so cool. Thank you for sharing your expertise, but we have to do our end of show wrap-up questions that I'm still getting used to, because it's still the beginning of 2023, and I've given myself the goal of getting through warm-up and wrap-up questions all year long. Okay. What is the best or most recent book that you have read?
Okay, this is going to sound a little crazy, but I went to my 16-year-old and I said, I need a book to read. I like historical fiction. And she came back to me and said, well, there's these 2 books. They're a Romeo and Juliet series based in 1920s Shanghai. They are called... Oh, goodness. Now I forgot the names.
That's okay.
They are, and they're in the YA section. So I would never have picked them up. Our Violent Delight, or These Violent Delights and Our Violent Ends. Those are the 2 names. Yes. Well, and because it's Romeo and Juliet, they're going to die at the end. But you don't know the twists and turns that these books take. I mean, seriously, I would never have picked these books up off the shelf, especially again, because they're in the YA section. But I have been talking about them for a while now, and I keep telling her, This was the best thing that I could have done, was to ask you for simple, like easy read.
I think that's important though, because we all read for different purposes. And
Mhm.
to read, turn off, and simple reading, great idea. Okay, so tell me the title one more time.
These violent delights and our violent ends.
Perfect. I will put
Yes.
that in the episode notes because those sound like fun. Okay, who or what is mattering to you right now?
Family. I've got 2 teenage daughters,
Mm-hmm.
and my older one, the one who recommended the books, is a junior right now. So we're getting
Soaking
close
up that time.
to college, and so
Mm-hmm.
there's that. And then my other daughter is in 8th grade, and so she's going to be starting high school. And so, like, just family, being around the girls is super important. And my parents are living, and just like making the most of of family. That is absolutely what drives me every single day.
So good. Thank you for sharing that. Are there any organizations or anything that really matters that you want us to highlight so people can find out more about it?
I was thinking about this question, and I am going to just mention the National MS Society. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 1999 at the ripe age of 21. And if you do the math, that means I've been living with MS longer than I haven't. And it is something that I think is a lot. It's really a lot misunderstood, because there's so many people who say, "Oh, well, that's like a death sentence." And I'm just here to say, the research that they have done, the medications that are on the market, the way that they're able to help us and treat us, it's remarkable. And I would definitely always do my best to support them whenever possible.
Wonderful. And what a testament for hard work and perseverance and showing up every day and helping all of us create unique platforms, even when you're going through your own stuff. What an awesome story.
Well, thank you.
All right, this is the last question. I'm kind of bummed because it's been so fun talking with you. What is the one thing that really matters that you want the listener to walk away from today's episode with?
Do something. You listened to Emily and I talk for how long now? Don't just put this on the shelf as something that was interesting. Do something with the content, with the ideas that came to you. Look at the show notes, click on something, write a list, take a voice memo, do something with the material that we have provided in this conversation, because it's going to help you, your current students, and your future students.
That's awesome. Do something. Oh, I'm so glad that we met, Jamie. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Anytime.
You ready to do something? You've listened, and I can't thank you enough for listening. This podcast wouldn't exist without you. But are you ready to do something? We don't have to be an expert in everything. You have to find your own way into your audience. And once you are there, talk to them about what sparks you, what gets you excited. Think about what could complement or supplement or prerequisite or whatever goal you have. Think about those things and then go do something about it. I love how there's so many good little nuggets of wisdom. Carve out your own segment of the music learning population. What do you love? What lights your fire? What burns bright? And then, oh my goodness, Jamie's definition of the zone of genius. She said the zone of genius is where passion and skill set align. We are in a space where expansion and opportunity can happen. How cool is that? Zone of genius. You, my friend, you're a genius. I'm so thankful that you're listening to the podcast. So we all know that you matter. Of course, music ed matters, especially all the cool things you can do with technology. And I'll see you next time on the Music Ed Matters podcast.